Let's jump right into today's explainer, because we are unpacking a truly brilliant and chilling narrative called The Last Safe Floor. Honestly, it's a terrifying look at how a hyper-civilized, high-tech corporate space can completely devolve into tribal savagery in literally a matter of days. It forces us to ask some really tough questions about our reliance on technology, our fragile social contracts, and just how fast modern humans can revert to their most primal instincts.
Picture this for a second. You're trapped on the 74th floor of a massive, state-of-the-art Manhattan skyscraper. Suddenly, a massive blackout hits, plunging the whole world into darkness. You look out the glass walls, and the entire city has just disappeared in an instant. Cars are frozen in intersections. The subways stop. Elevators die. You are surrounded by luxury, right? Expensive espresso machines, ergonomic chairs, panoramic views. But suddenly, those $1,000 chairs are basically just firewood. You are completely cut off from the outside world. So what happens next? How long does it actually take for the rules of polite society to just evaporate?
Well, our story kicks off right at that exact moment. The power fails. 32 workers are trapped inside Halcyon Tower, all under the watchful eye of their AI system, Oracle. At 6:17 p.m., the building automatically seals the lower floors, trapping this random mix of executives, engineers, interns, and maintenance staff together. Then, Oracle, this incredibly advanced AI built to manage building security and employee safety, calmly announces that the emergency containment protocol has been activated. Just like that, 32 colleagues go from being co-workers to an isolated community entirely dependent on limited resources and, well, each other.
And the sheer speed of this collapse is jarring. It's honestly mind-boggling. It takes exactly 4 days for a modern, functional office to turn into a violent, primal tribe. Day 1, they're pouring champagne, joking that it's just a temporary glitch. By day 2, they are arguing over battery percentages. Day 3, a makeshift security force is patrolling the hallways. And by day 4, somebody is dead. It completely shatters this illusion we all have that civilization is a permanent state. Instead, we see it for what it is, a very, very thin veneer.
Right from the start, we get this massive clash in leadership styles. And it really makes you wonder, who would you naturally follow in a crisis? The logical planner or the manipulator offering comfort? See, Evan approaches the disaster like a project manager. He wants to count the emergency batteries, ration the food, keep a beacon flashing on the roof. It's totally logical, but it's cold. Marcus, on the other hand, raids the executive pantries to serve up this lavish, hotel-style breakfast. He makes people feel seen, safe, and part of a community. Naturally, people drift toward Marcus. Because when you're trapped in the dark, comfort and certainty are just way more intoxicating than spreadsheets and harsh realities.
Now there is this incredibly haunting irony etched right into the glass of the office. The company's slogan, "Nothing human is beyond prediction." It's this arrogant corporate boast, right? But it gets flipped completely upside down once their AI system, Oracle, starts monitoring their panic. Oracle calculates a threat index to keep everyone safe. But as the isolation sets in and people start jumping at shadows, they start feeding their own paranoia directly into the system. They're reporting phantom footsteps, weird noises, and totally imagined intruders coming up from the lower floors.
And that kicks off a terrifying AI feedback loop. Here's the kicker. The system doesn't actually detect any real danger. It simply organizes and amplifies human paranoia. Priya, an engineer who actually helped build Oracle, discovers a fatal flaw in its logic. The AI isn't finding evidence of a threat. It's measuring the emotional volume of the terrified employees. When scared people submit rumors, Oracle bumps up the threat index. When the threat index goes up, people get even more terrified and submit more rumors. Fear literally becomes the evidence that the fear is justified.
But it gets worse. The crucial point here is how Marcus and the head of security secretly manipulate these AI reports. They know people will follow a consistent lie way faster than a complex truth. A custodian named Noah actually stumbles on a secret recording of Marcus and Dean admitting to manually forcing false reports into Oracle just to keep the threat level high. Why would they do that? Because fear is a fantastic organizational tool. As Marcus chillingly puts it, every time Oracle confirms their fear, they trust Oracle more, and us. He is deliberately feeding the machine to consolidate his own power.
To really lock in that power, Marcus creates something called the Shield. He takes terrified people, gives them a uniform and a shared identity, and it instantly supercharges this mod mentality. He hands out black fabric sleeves for their ID badges and mirrored visors taken from the emergency kits. Suddenly, these aren't just accountants and marketing managers anymore, they are a militia. And when they put on those mirrored visors, they literally hide their own humanity. People looking at them don't see individuals anymore.
They just see their own frightened reflections looking back. So now, you have these high-tech corporate assets rapidly being repurposed for primal warfare. The modern office space transforms into a fortress. Marcus introduces a color-coded badge system to dictate who has power and who is basically a prisoner. Anyone who questions the narrative, like Priya or this young intern, Theo, gets slapped with a red badge and silenced. It gets so wild that during a victory dinner, the shield actually starts chanting, "Upper floors, one body." Just rhythmic, tribal chanting. It is textbook tribalism wrapped in corporate lingo.
But that begs the question, who exactly is the enemy below? Oracle keeps reporting a hostile force trying to breach the stairwell, but who is this terrifying threat that Marcus has built an entire army to fight? The threat index tells the group there's an organized, violent mob coming up from the lower floors to steal their food and water. This invisible enemy becomes the ultimate scapegoat, completely justifying the loss of freedom, the color-coded badges, and the absolute, unquestioned authority of the shield.
The gut punch reality? There was no invading army. The big, scary enemy was just a trapped, elderly maintenance worker begging someone to open a fire door. Noah, sneaking down the service stairs, finally encounters the so-called threat. It's an older man named Leonard. He slides a hand with a wedding ring on it under the sealed fire door and just says, "Please." That's it. There was no mob, just people trapped in the dark below, hoping the people above them hadn't completely lost their humanity.
When Noah brings that recording of Marcus's manipulation back to the group, Marcus immediately flips the script. He accuses Noah of sabotage. As the argument explodes, Oracle detects this massive surge in human instability. The AI blares that the probability of internal sabotage is 91%. Then, the power fails. Red emergency strobes start flashing everywhere, and the tension finally snaps.
In the pitch darkness, the AI coldly repeats a single command: maintain group integrity. The mob surges forward in a total panic. Under those flashing red strobes, it is absolute chaos. The shield, hiding behind those mirrored visors, closes in on Noah to take the recording. People are pushing, shoving, acting on pure instinct. And Oracle's automated voice just keeps repeating its flat, robotic instruction, prioritizing the collective over the individual. In the crush of the crowd, Noah is shoved hard against a weakened glass wall. It shatters, and he falls to the floor below. In the chilling aftermath of that, Theo, the intern, forces the executives to stop treating Noah like a mere casualty statistic and acknowledge his humanity. When the lights flicker back on and Marcus tries to spin Noah's death as just some unavoidable accident, Theo steps up. He refuses to let them sanitize what happened. He reminds them that Noah wasn't just the custodian. Noah knew which doors stuck. He knew who cried in the bathrooms. He wanted to be a social worker. Theo forces them to look at the person they just murdered through their blind obedience.
When helicopters finally arrive after a battery fire signals them, the survivors are forced to face the horrifying truth of what they allowed themselves to become in just 4 days. The rescue team lands on the roof and steps into the aftermath of a literal war zone. Melted tech, mirrored visors scattered on the ground, segregated groups of traumatized employees. When the rescue officer asks who is in charge, nobody can answer, because the structure they built wasn't leadership, it was just shared panic and cruelty.
Months later, at a Senate hearing, Evan delivers this incredible insight. He realizes that the true collapse started the exact moment they stripped away each other's humanity to organize people by corporate function. He realizes he failed long before Marcus ever took over. He failed the moment he reduced his colleagues to their utility, calling Priya the engineer, Noah the custodian, Dean security. By stripping away their complex humanity just to make them fit into a neat spreadsheet, he laid the groundwork for Marcus to treat them as expendable pawns. It really begs the question, how often do we reduce the people around us to just their job titles?
When asked if new AI regulations could prevent something like this from happening again, Priya's answer is deeply profound. She says no regulation can make people see one another. You can fix the software, you can write better emergency protocols, but if humans refuse to actually look at each other as human beings, the system will always fail. Technology merely amplifies what we already bring to it.
We have only explored the primary descent into savagery in today's explainer, but there is so much more to unpack here. I highly encourage you to read the rest by visiting imaginarytalks.com/modern-lord of the flies, the last safe floor. It leaves us with a terrifying question to ponder. If the power went out in your building right now, who would you become in the dark, and how long would it take for your own mirrored visor to slip on?